さて、こっから出ること考えないとな。
さあ警察ども、この窮地どうやって乗り切る？
簡単だ。お前を止める。
Hello, and welcome to LupinRecap vs. PatReview, the podcast starting up a storm. I'm your host, Lokamasi, and with me is my lovely co-host, Fefter Masamune.
It's such a pity to say goodbye to Yugo.
Yeah, we are a Lupin Ranger vs. Pat Ranger recap and review podcast, and we're covering the last episode. What the hell?
Wow, that's weird.
I'm actually, in shock that we got to the last episode.
Here we are, all the way at the end.
It took much longer than 52 weeks to cover 52 episodes, but here we are.
There were some breaks, but we got it eventually.
So, because this is the last episode, we're going to talk about our final character rankings.
Extensively.
Where does everyone land when all is said and done? Who's the worst? You already knew this from episode 6. But yeah, I will go first.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think we'll both have the same number 7, so we can probably talk about them at the same time. But number 7 is Sakuya.
Nope. Got him.
What? Alright, fine. Then I guess I'll just be out here on my own. So my main problem with Sakuya is all in the script. I think he is incredibly poorly written. His crush on Umika sucks. We've talked about this a lot. However, despite putting him at number 7, I have to give a lot of respect to Ryo Yokoyama for doing his absolute damnedest to salvage this character.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned in an earlier episode, everything I hate about Sakuya is in the script, and everything I love about Sakuya is in Ryo Yokoyama's performance.
Mm-hmm.
He's, the only person I've seen deliver the nice guy line without pissing me off.
Mm-hmm.
He actually sold it. It's super weird. I'm really just had the wind taken out of my sails because I thought you were going to be talking at the same time. But yeah, as I said several times, Sakuya is my least favorite character, but I don't think he's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. I just wish the script did not fuck up that much. So, moving up, at number 6, I decided to put Tsukasa. Normally, number 6 is where I put Toma, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized Toma did appeal to me and was a lot of fun to watch and talk about and make jokes about. Tsukasa is pretty much entirely established in episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
We do learn more about her, but it doesn't really change her or the way we understand her. Alright, she has a strict grandfather she had a complicated relationship with. That didn't really change much about how I felt about her. And she gets a lot of cool scenes, and she does some cool stuff. And she's sort of in that... I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. She's a little generic in the way that a lot of male action heroes are.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's okay that she's not the most fleshed out and developed.
Yeah, she's cool and good, but she's just too cool and good at the start.
Yeah, I have the note a little too well put together to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. She's got her shit together.
It's weird. I think entertaining and interesting are not synonyms. She's very entertaining, but when it comes time to talk about her, it's just, well, she rules. There is some stuff in how she was willing to give that one Ganglar a second chance, and how she was pretty much the only cop to do so. Noel might have, but it's hard to tell because he had different information than everyone else. So yeah, Tsukasa is a very good base character, but she's not developed as much as the other characters. and that's fine, but it's hard for me to put her above the other characters that are more developed. I'm not slamming the writers or anything. Tsukasa's still cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like Tsukasa. So for number 5 is where I put Toma. I think I mentioned that once he reveals his sadness and like who he lost and how badly it upsets him, it's sort of done until the last episode. But the more I thought about it, the more he does change very slightly. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of fun watching him like slowly rediscover his feelings. Because, oh no, I do like people. Oh, damn it. I thought I was done with this. Like the moment in... Oh god, I forgot the episode number. The Go Home episode. Mm-hmm. Where he realizes that Kairi is having problems but just doesn't know how to talk to him about it.
Yep.
Highly relatable.
And then there's the episode where he and Noel go get themselves kidnapped. That one was pretty good.
Even like during the Christmas episode, he's surprisingly friendly to Sakia. Mm. Even it's weird because his line of like, I just hope you can protect me, it feels like a joke, but I'm not sure what's joking about it. Like, it's a little wink wink nudge nudge, I can take care of myself, but I still think that he's actually relying on Sakia, which is weird. For number 4, I have Noel. My only note is the word backflips. Noel is super fun. Mm-hmm. He is just a goddamn delight every time he is on screen. I do like the drama that he brings towards the end of the show, but it's also weird because, like, once that's resolved, he doesn't leave or anything, but he drops off a lot really quickly. In some ways, I kind of respect them, like, dealing with the 6th Ranger just before the climax, instead of having him take up too much time during the climax. I think that's kind of an interesting way of going about it. Ultimately, he's a lot of fun, super flashy, but he doesn't just bring the drama that my top 2 characters bring. I suppose he's less dramatic and emotional than Toma, but you know, enough flashiness eventually makes up for that. Number 3, I have Umika. My notes are, she's adorable and she deserves more episodes. Yeah, we mentioned that Umika was like really, really well developed early on, and then kind of just fell out of the spotlight. Episode 7 is still one of my favorite episodes. I think that its look at what is ostensibly the weakest link in the team is kind of interesting, because there are a lot of situations like that episode has been done a lot of like, oh, the character thinks they're the worst and has to deal with that. But I feel like a lot of times it ends up like, here's this one unique thing that only you can do. But Umika doesn't do that. She doesn't do anything unique or anything that only she could do. It was just the idea that she could still act and, you know, do things on her own, even if she is technically the weakest member of the group. She's still a fucking Lupin Ranger. She can still Hurricane Rana Sakia.
I miss that.
That was the best. I'm gonna release an edit of this episode on the Pirate Bay where any time she talks to Sakia is replaced with that scene. But yeah, I wish she interacted with Tsukasa more. I still wish that my fucking pipe dream of Umika in the last episode saying, Sakia, sorry, I'm really not that interested in you. But Tsukasa, are you doing anything later?
Sorry, Sakia, I'm gay.
You know, I wasn't sure until I met you, Sakia, but yep, I'm definitely gay. Number 2, I put Keiichiro. My notes are, he's so sad. I think that the show doesn't go super hard on this because it is a kid show and they don't want to overwhelm children on Sunday mornings. But the revelation that, oh no, I wanted to help people and I became a cop, that's not a good way to help people, that he actually has in the show.
Yep.
It's pretty wild for a kid show to even mention.
Only trust the Lupin Rangers. Police will never help you.
I guess spoilers for this episode, I wish that we had seen some sort of follow-up to that. Like, either some sort of reforming thing, or, I don't know, he quits to go teach criminal justice at a university or something. which would be fucking wild, but I wish that we got some indication that he would eventually stop being a cop.
Alas, if you go full ACAB, you're probably not going to get that writing job back.
And number 1, I put Kairi. My notes are, he's so sad! But in all caps this time. Kairi's self-loathing is another thing that comes up. It's canon. I can point to scenes that prove it, but it's not super addressed. So it's not like the writer sat down and thought this is a part of the character that we need to think about and address. It feels more like it just sort of came out during the creative process. Mm-hmm. But it's really interesting to see a character do the whole, like, I hate myself and I can't deal with it when people are nice to me and treat me well, and have it not actually be resolved by the end of the show. Mm-hmm. He's still struggling with that. He still has a lot of issues. Because the show is about solving certain problems, and that wasn't one of them. So I guess, overall, looking at my list, the characters who have problems that are working on solving them but don't solve them tend to be higher. Mm-hmm. God. Switching to Q Ranger after this, by the way, what a fucking switch.
I know, right? God.
Like, don't get me wrong. I like Q Ranger. I like the characters in Q Ranger. They're hilarious. I love them. But God, I could not talk about any of them for as long as I can talk about Sakuya.
Yeah, that's kind of sad.
Like, maybe eventually I could talk a lot about, like, I don't know, Lucky, Tsurugi. Did I get his name right? Ho Soldier. I may have forgotten the character's actual name. But, like, oh, it's Tsurugi. That's right, there's another T in there. But they're, like, what about Sparta? The fuck do I say about Sparta?
Which one was Sparta? Was he one I've seen?
The chef.
Okay, yeah. I forget everything about that guy, except he made chef jokes. I don't even think I remember what he looks like. I just have... just chef... I know there's a character who uses chef puns and whatnot, but he might as well be a mannequin, in my mind.
And, like, he has other character traits, but they're just sort of there. They don't interact and create really interesting dynamics the way that the characters in this show do. Like, even the flat characters like Tsukasa, they still generate interesting dynamics by being around more dynamic characters.
I guess...
The fact that Sakuya starts out so well put together is what helps Keiichiro get his first burst of character development.
Yep, I guess that's why I keep comparing this show to Three Houses. It's kind of got the same thing. Your lines about Q Ranger just made me think, oh yeah, Fire Emblem Fates.
Alright. Let me just make one thing clear. I would never compare Q Ranger to Fire Emblem Fates. Q Ranger does have some interesting characterization. I've mentioned they do the Sasuke story, but better. Mm-hmm. Specifically, the Sasuke brother conflict. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there is good characterization in it. It's just because they have an 11 Ranger team, plus a couple supporting characters.
That's too many Rangers. This show had 7, and that was, quite frankly, too many.
Gotta put Saki on the chopping block. Sorry. But yeah, let's go through your list, because I need to know who's number 7.
Alright, so, keep in mind, I basically made up my list by thinking of characters and sort of how they related to the central themes and how much I enjoy them in that regard, which is why number 7 is Tuma. Sorry, Tuma. Like, he does develop, but, like, I feel like the ways he develops I see in other characters, but they're more interesting, like Kairi. They kind of develop in similar ways. They have social problems, and that's an understatement. His biggest thing was kind of, like, especially at the end, that he's sort of the dissenting opinion amongst the Phantom Thieves, and there should be one, you know, like, that's important to the script, that there's somebody who says, hey, maybe we should just cut this and run, the cops are really starting to get close to our identities. But that doesn't really make him personally as appealing in, like, a group dynamic sort of way. he is necessary, not necessarily, like, super, I don't want to say enjoyable. I guess just interesting to the overall plot. I'll go with that.
Yeah. I mentioned it is fun just how, like, on edge he seems, or how close to leaping off the edge he seems at times.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the person who made the "This is my daughter, I will protect her with my life" comic made one of Toma that says, like, "I used to have a conscience, then she got frozen by Umika." And he never gets quite that angry, except that one time in episode 46 where he almost murdered Kairi on the spot.
Yep.
But it's fun to joke about him being that angry. That being said, I totally understand why you would put him on the bottom.
Yeah.
In fact, I figured if you didn't put Saki at the bottom, it was probably Toma. Because it sure as hell ain't Tsukasa or Umika.
Yeah. I love
It ain't
Toma.
Noel.
And
Ain't Noel.
And his actor is fantastic. Like, not gonna say the acting's not great. He does stoic so well to the point where, like, I saw a picture of him smiling just like normally, not a Tuma smile. I was like, oh right, he can do that. He can express like actual joy.
He's not like that at all in real life. He's really personable in real life as far as I can tell.
Yeah, he just seems super cheery, and it's weird.
I still love that joke where he and Ryo Akiyama are hanging out and he's smiling and Ryo isn't. Just the opposite of all their interactions on the show.
Yeah, that rules. Alright, so, number 6, he couldn't get too far away from the bottom. It's Sakia. In all fairness, Sakia should be higher on the list. I actually really like his developments. They're really good. He basically learns that while he may not be the best, he doesn't have to be the best. He can still be good enough. His cheerful attitude makes him the most immediately approachable Pat Ranger, and, you know, just, I think that's important for him in the group to be the most approachable. He is just super friendly and good on the outside. And I also kind of like his internal conflict near the end of the series. His belief in Umika and the others isn't exactly blind. He wants to believe their innocence, but even he seems to have his doubts. But he still sticks up for them because he wants to believe in them. So he's sort of the opposite of Tuma in that, like, his position is a necessity in the Pat Ranger dynamic at the end. You know, there needs to be a voice that says, hey, maybe they're innocent. But I think his position reflects better on him as a character, so it's a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah. You can actually connect the dots in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Toma, it's just a one-step process of, oh, he's the grumpy one.
That being said, I really do not like his relationship with Umika. I've seen worse in media, sure.
Absolutely.
Sakia's biggest issue is that he's too enthusiastic when Umika's not into him, but he doesn't do anything untoward to her. Still, though, even when it's not malicious, I don't like the storyline in which the girl keeps saying no until the boy is persistent enough that she says yes. Near the end, he does give her good advice without coming on to her, and that's fine, but there is one very clear turning point where Umika sees Sakia do one nice thing, and then suddenly decides she's crushing on him too. Honestly, I would have been fine with a relationship if it reached something like that point that it did near the end, closer to the beginning. But most of the show had Umika look extremely uncomfortable anytime Sakia talked to her, and Sakia was too much of a doofus to pick up on body language. Their relationship should have evolved a lot sooner. I don't like will they, won't they. If you want to convince me that two people have chemistry, show the damn chemistry.
Yeah. Like, maybe if they had tied Umika's discomfort to him being one of the police rangers dedicated to taking her down.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, they had the turning point a lot earlier in the show, it would maybe be a bit more tolerable.
I still want the Hurricanrana in there, though.
Yeah. But in the show as it is, it's just sort of, I do not like your personality. Now I do.
Yeah.
Because Sakia doesn't change!
Yep, nope.
He grows, but he doesn't change the way he acts to, like, a perceivable degree by Umika.
Yeah. She just looks at him being friendly with a kid, and she's like, and yeah. Plus, I'm not super keen on how his whole thing is that he seems to more pity Umika for being a Lupin Ranger. I'm just saying, while Sakia was moping about Umika having made the choice to be a Lupin Ranger, Tsukasa understood why she did what she did. Get you a girl that understands and accepts that you're a cool-ass thief ranger, not the guy who's crying because you're doing cool flips and crimes.
That being said, I actually do kind of like their dialogue on that one date they had.
Mm-hmm.
I like that Umika says she dropped out of high school and Saki's like, that's so cool! I want that kind of dynamic in straight couples in media more often.
Yeah, like, again,
Please.
That would have been way better if it happened towards the start of the show.
Yeah, can we just please have more supportive straight boys in media and real life? But I can only ask for so much.
Yeah, we're not asking for miracles here.
I did forget to mention, I understand why we don't want to talk about episode 11.
Mm-hmm.
But while I'm talking about pipe dreams, what if they actually ran with Sakia not being bothered by the gender swap stuff?
That would rule.
And
Honestly.
actually make them gender fluid.
Yeah,
I don't know, what else they could... Alright. Let me say this whole thing very carefully. I don't think they can make any more plots out of it, but they don't fucking have to.
Nope.
They just have a character that, due to magic, admittedly, realizes, oh hey, I'm gender fluid or agender. I don't care about gender one way or the other. And then just have them do that for the show. No more episodes about it. It's just always there.
Yeah, just fucking have him wearing a dress sometimes. There. Good. Just have him... Just give him the clothing budget.
Yeah.
Umika took up
Hey, you know what?
of it.
Umika's a fashion designer.
Oh my god, that would have ruled.
Have him ask her. God, I don't know how much. This scene popped in my head, and maybe it's a little too mean for some people, but the idea of Umika saying, like, sure, you can hang out with me if you help me model my dresses, and Saki's just like, hell yes! He can just, oh, okay, sure. Because honestly, that would be a much bigger reason for her to change her opinion of him. Because that actually implies that there are things that she couldn't already know.
Yeah.
Rather than just being nice to a kid. Like, of course he's nice to kids. Look at this fucker.
Yeah.
He's nice to almost everyone.
That worked so well, and then it would have given them, a common interest that they could have shared and bonded over.
Yeah, I try not to, be too revision, or, suggest too many rewrites when I'm critiquing something. Because I don't want to give the impression that, I'm a super competent writer. I know exactly what to do in any given situation. But sometimes just spitballing this is really fun.
Yeah. But I guess we have to get off that topic and move on to number 5. Number 5 is Tsukasa. So, like I said, Sakia should have been higher on the list because, much like her foil Tuma, Tsukasa doesn't do much growing. Her problem, though, is that she's just too good at her job. She has a good balance of skepticism and trust that make her a good detective without making her overly suspicious of everyone. She's the first one to figure out the Lupin Ranger's identities, but she backs off due to insufficient evidence. The only problem she has is that she likes cute things a lot, but that's not really an issue that does anybody any harm, so there's no reason to improve. She's just intense about hugging stuffed animals, that's all.
The only real improvement is that she becomes more comfortable talking about it.
Yeah.
And even that sort of fell off.
Yeah, she didn't really talk about it that much.
I guess it's hard to, think of new jokes with it, but I don't know, she could have, started carrying a soft toy on her keyring or something. Where we could see it instead of having it be hidden.
Yeah, that would have been nice. I also like that she gets to rein in Kaichiro, though the really important moments where she does that are all early on as well. Unlike Tuma, though, I do find her interactions with the Lupins interesting, at least early on. As I said at the time, I liked that she and Umika were both willing to team up, even during a time of distrust between the two groups. And I wish the show had made something out of that. Also, she and Umika had a date in the early parts of the show, and they never followed up on that. Their special was called Girlfriend's Army, for crying out loud.
Fucking sick of this queer baiting.
Toei doesn't know what the people want.
Toei knows what the people want, they're just fucking cowards. So a couple of things. Thinking about it, maybe the way to do Tsukasa would have been characterizing her the way that Uncle Iroh is characterized in Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
In that there are perhaps questions about this character, but as they're answered, it's revealed that like they did all their character developing prior to the show. And I think they tried to do that with the reveal of her grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't quite work because it's too close to like a standard setup, I think.
Uh-huh.
For a character like that.
Yeah, like, they sort of did that, but like, a lot of it was actually more for development for Kaiichiro. Like, they had those flashback moments where, Tsukasa just started the job for the money, and then Kaiichiro had that whole thing about how they also have a duty and all that. But again, that was more for Kaiichiro because present-day Kaiichiro had forgotten about that, whereas she hadn't.
It's just another thing to talk about. I've seen a lot of people think that Kamen Rider 01 is ripping off of Lupot because of the dynamic between Fua and Yua being too similar to Tsukasa and Keiichiro.
Not really.
Yeah, like, other than the fact that for some reason Yua reminds me a hell of a lot of Tsukasa, even though the more I think about it, the less similar the characters are.
Appearance-wise, they have the same sort of look about them,
They have a similar hairstyle, I think.
Yeah, straight long hair, just very clean, fairly calm attitude. But yeah, maybe for the first episodes they're introduced, but even then, like, Tsukasa's whole thing was reining in Kaiichiro. Yua does not rein in Fua at all. He insubordinates the hell out of her.
That was exactly what I was going to say, is that Keiichiro respects Tsukasa, and Fua really does not respect Yaiba at all.
There's like one of the fights where he just pushes her out of the way at one point.
It's not until episode 10 where we get any indication he cares about Yua as a person, like in the slightest.
Yeah. And even then, by that point, their relationship is way different. I'm not going to spoil 01, but like, just saying, Kamen Rider might have more than one rider nowadays, but from what I've seen of the newer seasons, it seems like the difference between Kamen Rider and Sentai is that the Kamen Riders really hate each other's guts.
That's honestly one of the funnier parts about the earlier bits of X8 is like, we're a team, but we all fucking hate each other.
I do not even see them as a team at the point we're watching.
No one likes each other. It's amazing. Yeah, I don't want to bog down this conversation any longer. It's already been a half hour.
Oh, yeah. Alright, so, number 4, Kairi. Kairi is good because he's just a little shit for basically the whole thing. He's just a gremlin that's super into being a phantom thief. Early on, he seems gutted when Kaiichiro tells him he's wrong for becoming a thief, but over time he comes to realize that he prefers the ways that he does things. He can't be as good as his brother or Kaiichiro, but that's fine because people can't be that good. Not always. Sometimes the situation calls for someone who doesn't play by the rules, and you can still save lives even as a phantom thief. As long as you're shooting a ganglar, you're not an evil person. Plus, the last struggle he overcomes is that his friends actually like him, and man, is that relatable.
I think I've already said everything about Kairi I really wanted to say. I really appreciate characters with not just self-esteem problems, but full-on self-loathing problems. And I think that Kairi's self-loathing problems are really well done.
Yep. Yeah, like I said earlier with Tuma, I think a lot of the ways Tuma develops are similar to the way Kairi develops. And like, part of it can be seen is they kind of start getting more emotional around the same time. Like, the previous episode has Kairi just smiling and laughing for having succeeded. And that's great. And like, Tuma, He's the same way at pretty much the same time, but Kairi's more the focal point of it all. So I guess Kairi's the reason that Tuma's 7th place for me.
Who are you? I'm you, but sadder.
Here's an advanced warning. I'm gonna steal your character development. Alright, so we did actually have one overlapping character, and that's number 3 with Umika. So,
If we were writing the show, she'd be number 1.
yeah. So, much like Sakia, Umika's the cheery one of the group, and given the Lupin Rangers are always stuntin', always looking cool, she is, as I've said many times before, a delight to watch. But I also think that Umika is good because, despite not being the main Pat Ranger, she is the key character in one of the group's biggest moments, the moment they reveal their identities. She expresses the most joy for the niche that she and the other two have made at Juror, so when they have to make the choice to take off their masks, Kairi and Tuma turn to Umika, and despite her desire for normalcy, Umika still says yes. This is like the biggest turning point for the group, and she's pivotal for it. That's the kind of decision I would have assumed the Red would have made, and yet it was more or less on Yellow. Good on her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but seriously, I am impressed that, again, that is pretty much the biggest moment for the Phantom Thieves, is that reveal. She is pretty much the best representation of one of the Phantom Thieves' struggle in this show, is that niche they've carved out for themselves, because while they're doing this all to save their loved ones, all of them find themselves sort of liking the spot they've found, and their partnership with the cops, and Umika is just the representation of that. I'm guessing the Yellow doesn't usually get to be this important to a show.
It's a little strange because there's only 3 members.
Mm-hmm.
When there's only 3, the Yellow tends to be more important because there's only 3.
Yeah. But still.
But I think something this show does is that they only really cared about colors during the early parts.
Mm-hmm.
When they were trying to decide, the blue does this, the yellow does this. I think at some point they did a much better job of just saying, what are these characters like, and which character should do this.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about, the characters, of course Umika is going to be the final vote for what to do on revealing their identities. Because she's the most attached to jurors, she has the most to lose.
Yep.
But a worse writer would have just had the Red decide, because the Red's the leader, and he's in charge,
Yep.
Oh.
But I like that she gets to be the heart of the group, and I'm glad that gets to be important. Alright, so, number 2, Kaito. Kaito has probably had the most interesting development out of all the characters. He started out as a shouty man who really hated the Phantom Thieves, but early on Tsukasa reminded him of how he had inspired her. From there, Kaito had to remember why he became an officer in the first place. We saw who inspired him, and that his sense of duty came from legitimately wanting to help people. Then he started to overcome his anger issues. Although there were humorous scenes that came about from his anger, they didn't ridicule the reality that his anger issues were an actual problem, and overcoming them was given actual gravity. They don't disappear completely, and his need to cool off isn't treated as a joke. And then, lastly, he starts to learn that everyone has a reason for their actions. In the end, he's extremely idealistic and wants to help everyone, no matter how difficult it may be. Basically, he's Marth. He's in a position of power, but he actually wants to use that power to help anyone who's suffering. He's the polar opposite of an actual cop.
Yeah, a couple of things I didn't talk about with Keiichiro. It's really fucking wild to think about how he was in the early episodes.
I know. He was pretty low on my list, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think episode 5 was sort of the low point for him.
Mm-hmm.
And Kairi, oddly enough, because of how poorly their fight went.
Yeah.
For both of them, somehow.
Yep.
But whereas Keiichiro immediately started crawling out of that, and resolve to become a better person. Kairi kind of doubled down, and that makes me like Kairi more because he's a fictional character, and I can just watch the train wreck from afar and not be hurt by it.
Yeah.
But it's also really interesting for Keitaro. And the thing about Keitaro is that his initial characterization was based off of... Oh god, there's like a specific character that Toei made that he's apparently based off of, but it's very recognizable as the angry detective trope. But I've been watching Kamen Rider Double, and there is a angry detective that hates Shotaro, the Kamen Rider that season.
Yeah.
And he's not developing the way Keitaro does, and I cannot stand him.
Oh dear.
Keitaro, you've created unreasonable standards for me. I demand character development from all shitty detectives now.
No more hard-boiled for you guys. Better start being fucking nice, idiots. But he's also a great foil for Kairi, because Kairi goes from having doubts about his position to willfully accepting it. Kaito, on the other hand, goes from having absolute faith in what he's doing to realizing the limits of his authority. But he's forced to accept that he can only help as an officer because there should be people who look out for the needs of the many. Even if he wants to help everyone, he needs to trust in Kairi's ability to help the people who the law fails to protect. And that is just really interesting for a Versus series.
Yep.
I think that they establish the niches for both characters very well.
I think I've said this isn't the first time they've done two reds. In fact, they did two reds in the series that immediately preceded this.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like this take on it, and it's gonna be weird seeing other takes.
Alright, and number 1, Noel. So, Noel's placement is pretty simple. He's the guy who does the most work pulling the two groups together, which means he's crucial to the overall development of the show. Given he starts by wanting to help both groups, he's met with plenty of trust from both sides, and it's not easy for him to get them to work together. They have two very different viewpoints, and their goals and methods seem to clash too much to ever allow for cooperation. And indeed, it is difficult, and Noel suffers for what he does. I think he takes a grievous wound during just about every pivotal moment, where either group learns to trust him more, or when both the Lupins, or when both the Lupin Rangers and the Pat Rangers start to work together. Granted, others are usually beaten up pretty badly during these moments, but Noel seems like he's just always in the line of fire. And
Every
yet,
time.
none of that seems to bother him. As long as what he does gets results, he'll gladly take any beat down. So, while Kaito has had my favorite development, Noel is the heart of the show itself. And while I don't know many Sixth Rangers, I would say the one that shakes things up by uniting two sides would probably be my favorite.
Yeah.
Because what I know about the Sixth Ranger trope is that they're supposed to be troublesome. Noel sort of seems that way initially, just because getting the Lupin Rangers and Pat Rangers to work together seems like an impossibility, and because of that, there's sort of a suspicion you just get of Noel right from the start, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing being on both sides? Do you have an ulterior motive? It turns out no, he doesn't. He's doing exactly what he says he's going to. He wants both groups to succeed, and he's going to make it happen.
God, it's weird, he causes trouble by trying to bring the two teams together.
Yep, they even
That's
had a
the
line
fun
about
part
that.
Of it. Yeah. Because normally, the Sixth Ranger trope is, they upset the established hierarchy, and, the Red doesn't like sharing the spotlight. But with, with Noel, it's like, hey, we should all be friends and get along. Fuck you.
How dare you?
Can't believe you would come into my house and tell me to play nice.
First off, bitch.
Noel, look at me.
Bitch.
Bitch.
So yeah, that's it. We're at 44 minutes.
We have had episodes shorter than this.
Well, we gotta close out the series, so...
Time for the fucking 3-hour recording.
Well, I guess since we are so far into the episode, we should just get right into it, huh?
Yeah.
So...
Let's do the summary.
Episode 51. White Clouds. I mean, we'll meet again. So, unlike the Phantom Thieves, Degranio is still at large. As he laughs about the situation, Good Striker wanders in the background, understandably worried. He flies off to parts unknown, and we cut back to the inside of the safe. Kairi merely says that they should think of a way out, and then we cut back to Degranio, still taunting the Pat Rangers. He asks how they're going to get out of this one, and Ichigo tells him it's easy. They just have to stop him. We then get a shortened intro, where all we get is the characters standing in a line with a short bit of the instrumental version of the main theme. It's probably because the intro gets shot. We don't want the full version getting holes in it. It's been with us for 50 episodes. It doesn't deserve to die like that. Anyway, Kairi and the other two are firing about randomly, but to no avail. Outside, Degranio is still beating the hell out of the Pat Rangers with his various safe powers. Inside, we see some of the collection pieces glowing green as Umika asks if they're done for. Tuma says that if it's their lives versus the world, the Pat Rangers would obviously choose the latter. Kairi figures he's satisfied with saving his brother and the others, so if they die, they die. Outside, though, it seems as though it might not even come to that, as the Pat Rangers have taken such a beating that they de-transform. But Noel comes running in and tries to slash the chains in front of Degranio's safe. It's futile, of course, and eventually Degranio gets bored and stops X's sword with his cane, before unsheathing his sword from said cane and further ruining Noel's day. To be fair, should have been obvious he would have had a cane sword. Inside, Kairi grapples one of the collection pieces and draws it to him. He laments that all of the treasure is going to be blown up with them when Degranio dies. Or, if. Giving the Pat Rangers a lot of credit there, buddy. Umika perks up and asks if the cops could wish to save them, but Tuma reminds her that a wish can only be made with the entire collection. The cops have some, Kogure has some, but the rest are trapped in there with them. Kairi suddenly sits up, seemingly having remembered something. Hopefully that idea of his helps soon, because outside, Degranio creates a lightning storm that knocks X out of the fight. Elsewhere, Goody breaks through the window of Kogure's mansion, intent on finding a collection piece that can open up Degranio's safe. He runs straight into Kogure, who asks what he's doing there. While they talk it out, we cut back to a panning shot of a very destroyed city. Degranio admits that he might have overdone it a little, and that he should have had a bigger audience if he's going to raise hell like this. He tries to take off, but is followed by the tactical unit, quite literally limping after him. They try to tell Degranio off and give some inspiring lines, but Degranio's done here. He asks if they really think persistence is going to help, before using a safe power to bind all 4 of the cops with shadows. He preps his usual spikes on fire combination and launches them. Against bound and unarmored opponents, it seems like it's the end of the Pat Rangers. They all flinch and avert their eyes, only for the earthen spikes to crumble to dust before they reach their targets. The shadows also dissipate, and we cut to the mansion, where collection pieces are teleported in one by one. Noel realizes that must be Kairi and the others, and indeed, we cut to Umika hastily shoving collection pieces into the book, with the other two gathering everything they can. We also flash back to that point where Kogure left his book in the restaurant and Kairi just took it. Did you remember that scene happened? I didn't. I thought it was significant at the time and then proceeded to forget that it was a thing. Back at the fight, Degranio tries power after power, but finds that none of them work. Noel says that they should be able to defeat Degranio, and Kaito tells the group to make the best of this chance. We then get the Pat Ranger's helmetless Kaisatsu change, and Ichigo now tells the Ganglar's leader that they're stopping him by force. Degranio tells the group that he doesn't need the collection, he's destroyed plenty of worlds without it. X runs in and he starts attacking them with his chains, but the Pat Rangers use them to throw him into a wall. X runs in and has a much more successful sword duel now that Degranio's cane sword trick has been revealed. Within the safe, though, things are a little less exciting and more sad, as we see the Juror trio placing their own dial fighters and versus changers into the book, fulfilling Kogure's request as best they can. Kogure sees this and picks up one of the versus changers, knowing what this entails. Tuma says that now, even if Degranio is defeated, Noel should still be able to fulfill his own wish to bring back Arsene Lupin. Umika says that she was hoping they could see him once he came back, and they all have a short chuckle. The Juror trio look to the sky, and Kairi tells the officers to make sure they defeat Degranio. Outside, Ichigo activates Victory Striker on X. X predicts Degranio's saw blade attack and dodges before getting in enough cover fire to allow Nigu to get a magic shot in. Degranio tries to retaliate, but is attacked and stopped by Songu with scissors. She then throws a couple of boomerangs, which seem to knock Degranio off his feet. Good Striker then flies in and drops Siren Striker in X's hands and tells him it was in the storeroom. X figures they might be able to use it to break Degranio's chains and activates it for Ichigo. Inside the safe, the Juror trio wish their loved ones well as they lie down and look to the sky, seemingly prepared for death. And it might come soon, as Degranio fires a large beam, which Ichigo counters with his own. They beam struggle against one another, and initially Ichigo is pushed back. But
Do you like Dragon Ball?
Degranio just shouts, "I'll see you in hell!" Or whatever it is.
But I'm perfect!
I've actually forgotten what his line is, even though it's referenced in like every Dragon Ball game with Cell in it. It's a dramatic finish in Fighters.
Oh, when he's winning. When he dies, he yells, "But I'm perfect!"
Yeah, just before when he actually fires the beam.
Yeah, I don't know that either.
I guess I'll just have to look up that dramatic finish later then. Anyway, Ichigo has something Degranio doesn't, and that's two still alive friends to help him. Songu and Nigu brace against Ichigo, who's now able to put in enough power to pierce Degranio's beam. Just before getting hit, Degranio puts up some chains. He then explodes, and the Pat Rangers look on in hopes that Siren was the power they needed to break Degranio's chains. The explosion clears, and it turns out that even Siren isn't enough. Although clearly exhausted, Degranio's chain barrier protected him. He rises to his feet, and the Pat Rangers order him to surrender and open his safe. Degranio refuses, no matter how much they shout. Hilltop and Jim watch the scene from a monitor. Hilltop says that he'll take responsibility, but orders them to take Degranio down. Even still, the tactical unit struggles. Kaito remembers Kairi's words, and how there's more people who still need his help. Kaito walks past his comrades, and slowly draws his gun as he remembers his time with Kairi. Saki and Tsukasa watch, also remembering their encounters with the Juror trio. Noel, of course, remembers the vow he made with the group. Kaito continues flashing back to the things he's told Kairi, their conflicts, and their friendship, until he stands before Degranio. Even armored, Kaito is still clearly sobbing, but we cut to the actor void, where we get to see a very emotional Kaito hesitate to pull the trigger. But Kairi bumps into him, and the void becomes an infinite sea. Kairi looks back and smiles, and Kaito lets out an anguished shout. We cut back to the real world as the camera pans upwards and a shot rings out. 1 year later, we hear a news report about another Ganglar attack being stopped by the Pat Rangers, who kept casualties and collateral damage to a minimum. And it seems as though it's the cops who are stirring up a storm now, as kids play with Pat Ranger toys and people talk non-stop about their Pat Rangers and their rise in popularity. We then see Kairi's brother Shori pass by the alleyway, you know the one, and he takes a long glance at it and utters Kairi's name. Aya blazes through her morning routine, having missed her alarm, and we see pictures of her and Tuma in the background as she rushes off to work. Shiho is showing a publisher her manuscript of a Phantom Thieves manga, where a familiar trio is headed by a short-haired girl with a spectacular fashion sense. The publisher says that Phantom Thieves are kinda passé, but Shiho remains firm in her belief that the Phantom Thieves will make a comeback.
Shiho leaps across the desk and fucking stabs him.
What did you say about my friend, motherfucker? Then we cut to the front of the police HQ, but we're quickly brought miles underground. There's an unfurnished room, walls lined with cameras all focused on a single point. A block at the center of the room. And, bound by his own chains, is Degranio. He shouts at nobody to let him out, or at least kill him. In the usual office, Saki and Tsukasa discuss the drop in Ganglar crimes. Without their leader, the Ganglars are dying off, but Kaito reminds them that they do still exist, so they can't rest easy yet. And speak of the devil, Jim's alarm goes off, so the tactical unit moves out. At some theater, we see a group of civilians running out, and the Pat Rangers pass them by as they enter and shoot down some Potomen. The final Ganglar of the week is some weirdo kingfish guy. He uses his collection power to fire an explosive orb, and that seems to be all he's got. Tsukasa notes that he's got a collection piece, and a very familiar voice says that this Gangler has not just any piece, but the final one. The tactical unit looks around until they spot something. Kaito gasps as we turn to the set's balcony, where those Phantom Thieves that everybody used to talk about are lit up by a spotlight. Kaito, Tsukasa, and Saki are amazed to see their friends again. The Phantom Thieves leap down and Kaito asks how they escaped. Kairi smiles, and the answer flies out from behind his shoulder. That's right, it's Jackpot Striker. He's finally back from the war, everyone. I made so many jokes about Jackpot Striker doing a thing, and guess what? He really did do a thing.
God, your reaction was so great. Just a sudden scream as soon as Jackpot revealed himself.
Secret favorite character, Jackpot Striker. Who would have guessed?
I kept wanting to make quote-unquote jokes about Jackpot Striker showing up at the last second to save the day, because it's so, patently ridiculous.
No one would expect you were actually telling the truth.
No one would believe me, and yet.
We flash back to the inside of Degranio's safe where the Juror trio's just sort of hanging about. I think Umika's giving Tuma a haircut? I think that's what's going on.
Somehow surviving despite not having eaten for a year.
They've just been eating grass. Anyway, Jackpot emerges from the book and tells the group that he can take it from there. He then uses his mind control power to safe track Degranio and free the Juror trio. I don't know how much in advance they planned this all out, but I'm fine with it. Hey,
something like this was probably planned, at least at the time they wrote the movie.
It still makes sense, had plenty of foreshadowing, they brought Jackpot Striker into the world, and now they're bringing him back, so it's fine. It feels fairly clever and very in line with a Lupin Ranger plan. Mm-hmm. Absolutely the dumbest thing possible. The group thanks Jackpot, though Tuma remembers that he'd gone missing and wonders how he knew to find them. Jackpot says that 3 Phantom Thieves had caught him, and, right on cue, 3 figures enter the room. We see a mix of emotions on the Juro Trio's faces as the new Phantom Thieves come into view. They remove their masks, revealing Shori, Aya, and Shiho. Everybody runs off to hug their loved ones, except Kairi, who's too stunned to move. Kairi walks to Shori with his head down, takes a breath, and finally apologizes. Shori does the nose thing that Kairi always does to Umika, and Kairi tearfully embraces him. We then cut to the alleyway, where we find that Shori was actually gazing at a discarded red mask. Aya's blue mask lies in front of a picture of herself and Tuma. And we see that Shiho has placed her own yellow mask on a stuffed animal. We hear Kogure saying that Shori and his team's duties are complete. Noel calls him terrible for scouting out those 3 to help, but Goody reminds him that he's the one who trained them to be Phantom Thieves. Noel says that he really wanted to get Kairi and the others back, and Kogure says that he really wanted to complete the collection. All 3 of them laugh. We return to the theater where Saki is overjoyed that everyone is safe. Everyone is, really. Until Kaiichiro realizes that they're still going to be Phantom Thieves. Tsukasa reminds them that they got their loved ones back, but Umika points out that they still don't have the whole collection. Like, literally, she points to the guy with the last one. Tuma says that they're going to take his collection, and then Kairi follows that up with threatening to take the tactical units versus changers as well. Kaiichiro says that since there are other ganglars out there, they can't surrender their equipment. Fish the King then re-enters the picture and is mad about getting shoved aside. It seems like one more brawl's a-brewing, so the Phantom Thieves get their final roll call, and Kaito change for a stylish finale. The tactical unit refuses to be one-up, and Kaisatsu change and follow them into the fray. Of course, they don't get their full roll call. They already had theirs this episode. Lupin Ranger bias, baby! And as the credits roll, we get some callback choreography. Nigu's a bit bumbling, Yellow's playful, and also she throws a bucket at some guy's head, as she did in the beginning. Blue and Sango, as always, are at each other's throats. Ichigo is aggressive, and Red gets a gun spin in. We even get one more Damn You Phantom Thieves for the road. And of course, the Ganglar with an ordinary safe is no match for Red, who enters his combination 502 and retrieves Here une fois de plus. And it's the collection piece we've seen time and time again in the intro. Turns out that is a canon piece. Didn't exist just for that. Red pushes Fish the King aside and joins the other 2 Lupin Rangers in a standoff with the Pat Rangers. Red gives them an advanced warning. The Phantom Thieves are coming for their treasures. 5 minutes later, Ryusol Red from Kishiryu Sentai Ryusolger breaks into the theater, interrupts Red's fight, and forces them to be pals. Friendship with Kairi Yano regained. Now Kairi and Ko are both my best friends. I had to look up Ryusolger just so I'd know the main characters' names. Fucking wild that he's 209 years old.
Yeah, I don't know much about Ryu Soldier, but I did know it was that sort of like, these are ancient defenders. Returned to us. Also, I think I knew his name was Ko, but I forgot until you said it. Also, you've only seen one other, like, Sentai Red handoff like this. They normally take place in, like, a void.
Yep.
And they also normally just, like, high-five or shake hands or something, respectable.
Okay,
but
so,
both of the ones involving, Lupin have just been really silly.
Yeah, like, you showed me the one for Lupin beforehand, and it's the previous guy who's gonna hand it over to Red and Ichigo, but then they're too busy fighting to actually do the handoff properly, and he's just left hanging.
Yeah, Kairi just hides behind Lucky, which leads to Kaito pointing a gun at Lucky's head for a good portion of this handoff.
God, I need to rewatch that. But yeah, this one is just canonically this guy just fucking enters in out of nowhere and forces them to be pals.
Yeah, it takes place at the last scene of the show, and it's kind of interesting.
Though I do love how their handoffs really mirror like the show itself, because of course, you know, before the show begins, they have a handoff where they fight each other a whole lot because they don't like each other. And then here we get one where they're friends again, albeit, you know, forcibly.
Yeah.
Ko has to block several shots.
What a show.
Yes, I guess we're an hour in, so let's kick off the end of it with the Ganglar discussion. All right, Kingfish. No, but seriously, let's talk
He's
about
Copamino, but different colors and less interesting.
I read in the trivia section that apparently, like, his suit design had elements of Relay Frogs in, so I guess, you know, fitting for the secret brother of Relay Frog to just get absolutely thrown to the side.
Oh, you meant the Ganglar at the very end. I thought you had switched to talking about Degranio.
Now we went back to that guy since you had a few things to mention.
And I was about to say, excuse me? Degranio has roulette frog bits in him?
Nobody wants Relay Frog bits in them. But yeah, let's talk about Degranio now.
So, I've not finished Q Ranger, but compared to the main bad guy in Q Ranger, Degranio is so much more threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the main bad guy in Q Ranger has conquered literally the entire galaxy, this one gangster is so scary.
Yeah, like, Degranio only passively mentions that he's destroyed other planets. It's barely worth mentioning to him.
And just like, with the main bad guy in Q Ranger, it's like, like 30 episodes before we really see him do anything or even see him at all, because he's always in shadow. Meanwhile, we see Degranio in the first episode. Episode 15, he almost kills 2 Power Rangers.
Yep. Yeah, so we've mentioned before that Degranio doesn't really get character development, but I do like his character arc. I've mentioned it a few times by this point, but I love how the start of the series has him just old and tired, and he just wants to retire and pass off his position to one of the other Ganglars, but, you know, over time, you know, again, like you said in episode 15, almost kills 2 of the Rangers, just casually, and for a while,
he can.
And for a while, still doesn't consider coming out of retirement. But once his first main minion dies, he starts to realize he wants to get back in the game. And we quickly see that it's very bad that Degranio has rekindled the flame of his desire to destroy the world because he can. He very much can.
Yeah, that one line of like, I don't really care what you young guys think anymore is just like, oh god, oh no.
I have stopped giving a shit. Beware, I live.
Beware, coward.
Oh god, yeah, honestly, same amount of threat as Sinistar, if we're being honest. Very similar presence. But yeah, he's just a powerhouse.
Yeah, Degranio was just a really good final threat. Not because of any, particular emotional connection he has with anyone. They already covered that with Zumigo.
Mm-hmm.
But just for how unstoppable he seems.
Yeah, like, he has a very unique safe, and we're not really told about it until the very end. And I like how they, drop in the fact that he has a unique safe when Noel is captured. He's like, oh, that's a status gold physical protection. So you're just like, oh, that means the chains are blocking it. No, that also means he doesn't have the same drawback that most Ganglars do. Mm-hmm. Because we have one rule with all Ganglars, one safe power per safe. We have Gauche, who specifically has one safe and has to switch out her multiple powers in order to use them. And here's the final villain who takes that rule and says, nope. I'm just not going to do that. If I was a Ganglar, I would simply use all of the collection pieces.
Rip to Gauche, but I'm different. Oh my god. Yeah, I've already made one Avatar comparison this episode, but he is the Ozai of this show.
Mm-hmm.
He is just there, he is a threat, and he is fucking horrifying.
Yep. So, with that done, I guess we'll talk about the episode itself before final thoughts for the show.
Yep.
Wild, huh?
So, let's see. I feel like I want to talk about the alternate Phantom Thieves, but I don't really know what there is to say about them.
Well, I'll have a few things to say about them. I will say...
I guess...
Mhm.
I will say the one thing that's kind of obvious, but I'll say it anyways. It's nice to know that after all the shit that the Juror trio went through, the Frozen trio would also go through for them.
Yeah.
It's nice to actually have on-screen proof of that.
But, yeah, alright, so, where to start? So, I figured pretty early on that the Juror trio would survive, because, of course, Tuma has that line early on where it's like, oh, do you think they're gonna save us? And he's like, no, absolutely not. And at that point, I was like, okay, so they're probably gonna live.
Tuma's never right.
Yeah, lines like that exist specifically to be defied.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, admittedly, I was kind of holding my breath during the 1 year later part.
I mean, God, you just have Kosei Yuki earning his, next role after the show is done. Just followed by a scream with off-screen gunshots. It's like, and then I think, it's hard to tell, but I think in the show it just keeps going, but the first time I watched this, I thought there was a cut to cut to commercials.
God.
So just, triple dunk gun will make you smile. I just want to see the kids just like, what happened? Go back! I just watched my heroes die. Don't fucking sell me the new Tamagotchi. Fuck you.
But yeah, I like how the solution for the last Ganglar was to actually do what, you technically should be doing as a cop more than as a ranger, and just fucking arresting him. It works for Degranio because, just letting him die, that'd be an okay finale, but chaining him to a block with his own chains for for a year, to the point where he's just begging to either be let free or be killed.
God, I just like these chains. Not even I can break them. Oh, you can't break those chains, you say. Wait, no, hold on. I don't like where this is going.
But yeah, also interesting that Degranio did grow in previous episodes, but the actual final battle with him doesn't involve a Kaiser fight at all.
Yeah, I think it's more satisfying to not have a mech fight be the last fight.
Yeah.
I understand the appeal of having the mech fights, but the Alpha fight is more interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, for Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger, it definitely worked better this way. There might be some shows where it's better suited to have a final fight with a mech, but, back during the last point where they formed the Good Cool Kaiser, I was mentioning how important that one felt, and it turns out there's a reason for that one. It's the last Good Cool Kaiser fight. We're not making that one again.
Uh-huh.
It comes at the climactic moment where Red and Ichigo actually have like this perfect moment of trust, and the teams can actually come together properly for once. So they slipped in a good final moment for that mech. And I think I pointed this out already, but the Lupin Kaiser fight. The Lupin Kaiser had never lost a fight until they fought Degranio. So the last mech fight in the series was a loss for the good guys and the first loss for the Lupin Rangers. Though, of course, as always, they were pretty stylish even when being defeated, because they did get blown up alongside half a city. Even when they're getting their asses kicked, they have to do it in a cool way. But yeah, way more satisfying to just fight Degranio at a normal size. Showed off that he could be a huge threat.
I do like that his main weakness is just the fact that he's literally 1,000 years old.
He's too old for this.
You're old, Father Degranio.
I don't need the collection. I've destroyed thousands of planets back in my day. Oh,
You're not putting me in a home.
Oh, wait, nope. Turns out the collection was my equivalent to a crutch, and I did kind of need that.
I wish Degranio had more goofy old man lines.
Yeah.
Back in my day, we robbed a bank. We went uphill both ways in the snow for 10 miles.
And we had actual guns, not gun arms.
You
fancy cartoon guns.
You kiss the day with your pot rangers. Back in my day, we fought real rangers. Licensed by the government of Japan to kill me. None of this stupid colorful uniform crap. They wore dark blue and they knew where to shoot to make sure you died.
You know that one Sentai season that only lasted for like 5 episodes? That was because of me.
Oh no, he ended Jacker. It was weird that it ended with Degranio teleporting on the scene of fucking murdering all 5 members.
Didn't show that episode that often for some reason.
How do you realize we just wrote a lost episode creepypasta?
It's not creepypasta. You know, it might be edgy. It's kind of an edgy bad end thing, but it's not creepypasta per se.
That's all that lost episode creepypastas are.
They're not bleeding hyper-realistic blood, it's fine. It's just the end of Knuckles Chaotix. The bad
I don't know if we have time for digressions.
Okay, yeah, so, rest of the episode. Mentioned that Lupin Rangers are all stylish all the time, but I do love that their finale is mostly actually just super calm. And they just sort of come to this point where they realize they've finished their mission, so they're gonna help Noel finish his, and then they're going to accept death. But then that doesn't happen, and instead they get a really nice emotional reunion. And like you said, I love that in the end, they saved their loved ones, but then their loved ones also got a chance to save them. It's really touching. Also, I legitimately want to read Shiho's Phantom Thieves manga. Just
I know, right?
Pause on that artwork, it's real good, and Umika's the main character, and her outfit is good. I want more Phantom Thieves content in general, but like, man, you can't tease me like this.
I mentioned that I would absolutely kill for a V-Cinema release of just the alternate Phantom Thieves getting jackpot.
Yep, I would also love that.
So I don't think I mentioned this on the podcast, but V-Cinema is Toei's direct-to-video branch. It's weird, because, like, Kamen Rider X8 got 3 direct-to-video movies in addition to 2 theatrical ones. Lupin Ranger got 2 direct-to-video movies. No, wait. On Film was released in theaters. It was just really short.
Yeah.
So 1 theatrical movie and then one crossover movie they have to share with the Q Rangers. Meanwhile, X8 had to have one crossover movie, one movie on its own, and then 3 direct-to-video movies on its own.
Jeez. Thought there was a Lupin Ranger bias? Surprise, it's actually an X8 bias.
Yeah, it's I think this really demonstrates that Sentai is the least popular of the big 3 tokus.
Yeah, like, I think Japan's order of favorites is the precise opposite of the US's.
Yeah, I feel like the Sentai is only at the top because of the awareness raised by Power Rangers.
I mean, yeah, but
Because, for me going through it, it's really clear to me that I'm more of a Kamen Rider fan now.
I haven't watched enough Sentai to know, and I should really get on to watching that, but yeah. Kamen Rider is pretty great, and I'm super enjoying it.
My main thing is that, I watched one Sentai show, started watching a second one, I finished one Kamen Rider show, started 3 others simultaneously. So I think I'm more of a Kamen Rider fan.
Yeah.
May have jumped the gun in this whole podcast thing.
To be fair, Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger is probably my favorite toku show from what we've watched, even though I really like a lot of things from the other shows.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Phantom Thief aesthetic is absolutely my shit, so that might be part of it, but I love the writing and the pacing of this show, and the characters, they're all good.
Yeah. This is even less likely to happen, but I saw a Tumblr post that was a skeleton outline for a fanfic where Umika, Shihochi, and Aya had to team up as Phantom Thieves, and Umika got to be the Red Ranger.
That's pretty good.
I would watch the shit out of that. The real girlfriend's army. They team up with Tsukasa. It's Umika and her 3 girlfriends. Sorry, Toma.
Poly army.
Toma, being a cuckold is Umika. Shut the fuck up, Toma. I'm fucking your wife.
God. It's great because, Tuma and Tsukasa is even less implied than Sakia and Umika. And yet...
I was talking about Aya.
Or Aya. I forgot you put Aya in there.
I was talking about Umika fucking Aya, which is not... They don't even speak to each other.
Yeah.
But Umika, being bisexual, must now be paired with every other character in the show, except Sakia. The one canon pairing.
If it weren't for, Red always being the leader, I would say Umika should stay yellow, because it's a pretty good color on her, and I'm having a hard time imagining her in red, but also...
Yeah.
Red's always the leader.
Yeah.
Alright, so in terms of episode stuff, I think that's about it. I will say again, I love that while the Lupin Rangers did get a mostly, calm, touching end, they do steal the show right at the last second, get a full roll call and transformation sequence.
It's astonishing that the Phantom Thieves that aren't even really a team for the entirety of the show also steal the show at the last second. When I first watched this episode and the alternate Phantom Thieves were revealed, I legitimately teared up. It was so good.
Same. I teared up watching the episode a second time. And reading this.
This is the only episode that I have rewatched on my own that had nothing to do with the podcast. I just really like this episode.
Alright, I think that's all I have to say about the episode itself. So, final series thoughts. Man.
What can you even say? We've spent fucking 51 hours, at least, talking about this show. You want our final thoughts? Go watch the rest of the episodes.
Since, not a big fan of cops myself or anything, I prefer to see, the conflict between Lupin Ranger and Pat Ranger as more of a needs of the few versus needs of the many. So the overarching theme of the show is the saving just a few people on a more personal level and saving everyone aren't, or they are compatible, like, goals. You can do both. There are enough people in the world who want to do good that there will be some people who can help out on both levels, and that's really good.
You have the Pot Rangers doing the brunt of this life-saving, and the Lupin Rangers are there to fill in the cracks. Hell, they demonstrate that in literally their first scene, where they save that one guy who gambled his life away.
Yep.
Cops didn't care about him. He was a criminal. He was illegally gambling.
But
the Lupin Rangers saved him anyways.
Yep. But then, for the most part, I believe we've mentioned this before, but people have complained about the fact that the Lupin Rangers do a lot of the fighting, and then the Pat Rangers are just there helping people, but, that's pretty crucial. Like that one episode where Kogure got split. The Pat Rangers didn't really have much to do in terms of, the actual story, but they did the important work of saving everybody affected by that safe power, just off-screen.
I will say there are some people that will just never watch this show because they don't have tolerance for fiction about police, and I totally understand.
Yeah, that's fair. I get you.
Generally speaking, I think people should watch this show, but if that's your reason for not wanting to watch it, I will stop. I will not fight you on it.
Yeah.
I totally understand. I'm able to separate the fictional stuff from the real stuff.
Yep, like I've said before, I do understand that fictional cops and real cops are far different, so I can tolerate the fictional cops, especially when they're not American fictional cops, because we've had this discussion. Loose cannons are bad.
Yep.
At least, other places have a nice ideal, even if that could never be reality.
It's a lot easier for me to buy into aspirational idealization rather than whatever the fuck Dirty Harry is.
Ugh.
I even hate Dirty Harry as a movie just because I imagine Dirty Harry is the bad guy also. That movie is structured in such a way that you could walk away from it going, wow, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
The sequels aren't, but the first one is. So yeah, I really enjoyed this show. I feel like the people who like it are not the people who get mad on the internet. So it doesn't have as many defenders as I think it has fans.
Yeah.
Because, people have looked at the numbers. The ratings on average have been going down for Sentai, except for this show where they went up. They didn't go up by much, but they reversed a trend.
Yep.
So that's a big deal. The toy sales were the worst toy sales in history, but that's just unfortunate.
Which is weird, because, man, they're pretty rad toys, to be fair.
I have them all except Jackpot Striker because, oh god, I didn't have my finger on the pulse, and now I would have to pay $200 at least for Jack.
You either have to pay $200 or a loved one has to come to you and save you with him after you've been trapped in a Ganglar safe.
It's either $200 or a year into Granio. These are our game show prizes in hell.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention it, but I was a little disappointed that we didn't get the full intro this time, because I was really hoping that for Zamigo's part of the intro, he just fucking fall over in the middle of it.
He just walks and then
just eats shit.
That would be great.
Because I don't think I mentioned that last time during my predictions, even though I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. I love what they did with the intro music in this episode.
Yep.
I'm glad they let the intro to the intro play a little bit during the first part of the episode. That's so many intros. I could have just said the phrase intro 3 times in one sentence and have it all make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to the altered, just the still shot of the 7 Rangers in a vaguely noir background. And they don't play the full OP until the end.
Mm-hmm. I will say, both teams' main themes, vastly underutilized. It has been ages since we've heard Lupin Rangers Here We Go.
Fans have been really getting on Toei for not using insert themes enough.
I mean, I guess they don't have to if they don't want to, but like, come on, here we go, it's such a banger.
Oh, I'm blanking on the name of the episode, but 01's insert song gets played every episode. every fight that Naruto is in, because he doesn't spend a lot of time fighting sometimes. It has Find a New Life playing.
Mm-hmm.
The argument might be like, well, we want to save the lyrical themes for the really badass stuff so we can use the intro. But here's the thing, 01 has a fight that starts with the insert theme and then switches to the intro, and the switch to the intro is the best fucking part of that whole episode.
God, that ruled.
I'm speaking super vaguely because I don't want to spoil 01 if you haven't watched it yet, but just the cut from the non-fight dramatic scene being punctuated by 01, 01, 01, 01.
It's so good. But yeah, like, I get why Here We Go and Searching for Truth weren't used in the final set of episodes, because there was no room for those, but I do wish they had fights near the end where they got used. Like, Searching for Truth would have been really good in the Satoru episode. They had fought Toxic Seahorse to that theme, and I don't know what point would have been good for Here We Go, because there wasn't a Lupin specific fight that it would have fit in, like near the end, but not, actually in the end game where it would have been inappropriate.
Yeah, by the end you want like the intro songs playing.
Yeah, because like anytime either team is actually winning, it's more of a struggle than anything else, so you don't have such a clear-cut victory that you'd cut in one of their "we're really cool and doing well" songs.
Oh, I did want to talk about one more specific to this episode. Some people take issue with the fact that we still don't know if the collection piece does what they think it does, because they've questioned, like, well, can the collection bring people back from the dead? And Kogore's always just like, we have to believe that. And now the show's over and we still don't know?
I'm fine with that, honestly.
Yeah. I would like those of you who do have a problem with this to watch 12 Angry Men so that you will have a fucking aneurysm. Not because I want you to have an aneurysm, but because I want you to realize that you don't have to answer all your questions, bro.
Yep, sometimes you just want to leave them open at the end, and, considering some people might also have a problem with the super magical collection that can bring people back to life as though they were Dragon Balls, it's fine to just leave that open.
It's just like jazz, it's all about the questions you don't answer.
That being said, though, really, Kaiichiro, you're not going to hand over your verses changers? Noel really wants to see his dad again.
That does kind of imply that it does work literally like Dragon Balls, and all the collection pieces will be turned to stone and scattered across the earth. Because, like, there's no reason for them to think that they can't just take their guns back.
Yeah.
But whatever. They just wanted to have and so the adventure continues ending, which I adored.
That's why we didn't answer all the questions, so we could do this.
I genuinely think this was the best way the show could have ended.
Yep, pretty much. I like that in the end the Phantom Thieves still get to be the Phantom Thieves. It's good. I'm glad that they were like, okay, yeah, the Phantom Thieves are super cool. And you know what? Even in the end, still super cool. We do not advocate the cool crime of robbery. However, please buy the Lupin Red toy. He is very cool.
Do not buy the Saki toy. Not that you were going to start, but do not. So yeah, I've been trying to think of more like, not critical in the sense of saying bad things, but critical in the sense of saying intelligent things. Dad, I can't think of anything. I really like this show.
Yep, good writing, good characters. Like I've been saying, Phantom Thieves are my shit, so I'm glad that there's some Phantom Thieves media that doesn't drop the ball. Atlas. Really appreciate that. I guess I will talk a little bit about, the more literal positions of both teams, not the broad sense of, needs the many versus needs the few, but, cops versus robbers. Insofar as I'm glad that they do like the Lupin Rangers as much as they do.
I was gonna say, like, everyone complaining about Lupin bias. Like, I'm so glad there's a Lupin bias.
Yeah, I'm glad they don't say, the cops are always in the right. They're like, no, you know what? The Lupin Rangers might be thieves, but, like, they have a goal and they're going to complete it, and even if they might not do things by the book, that's just how they do things. They're allowed. Their methods are just as valid as the Pat Rangers.
So I will ask, what are the odds of us watching Ryu Soldier, and will it measure up?
I mean, I feel like it can't. Because, again, this show has my aesthetic.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm way into the aesthetic of Medieval Knights, but
yeah,
I just don't have any desire to watch Ryu Soldier.
Yeah, I'm not super into it initially. I'll probably watch it at some point. Though since, like, we're deep into Ryu Soldier by this point, I believe. Do you know how many episodes they're in?
33, I think? I was just looking at Overtime's page. It's not like 01 where we could catch up over a couple nights.
Yeah, I would kind of just prefer to just wait for whatever, the new Sentai afterwards will be and start getting into that as a usual thing.
Which we have a name, Machine Sentai Kira Major. Nobody's explained to me what Kira Major means, but machine, I know, is either machine or demon.
Mm-hmm.
So I better get some really fucking good Zord designs out of this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if there's anything else I wanted to talk about, I could briefly talk about some of the goofiness around the stage show.
Alright.
Ryu Soldier has an ending theme where all the Rangers dance along to it. Q Ranger had a similar thing. I think it's a Sentai tradition that just comes and goes from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Lupin didn't have an ending theme, so there was no dancing, but that just means they get to dance to everyone else's theme.
Mm-hmm.
In order to promote the live show, they recorded both teams individually, then the teams together, and then just the Reds dancing along to the end of, or to the Ryu Soldier ED theme.
Mm-hmm.
The show's Twitter is filled with videos of Koseyuki dancing and losing his shit at a particular moment. But the way that video ends is both Kosei and Asahi come to the center of the frame from opposite sides of the frame, and they use their hands to make a heart. According to Koseyuki on Twitter, there is a take where instead of making the heart, they just kissed.
Mm-hmm.
And Kosei is apparently upset that did not make it to air. I have to keep saying apparently because I don't read kanji. This is just what people have told me. And I believe them.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason I believe them is because during the stage show itself, during the last showing of it, there is a scene that has not been subtitled to my knowledge, where Lupin Red runs off after a while, and before he leaves, he just leans in and kisses Koseyuki on the lips in front of everyone, and they're wearing microphones, so you can really clearly hear the lip smack.
Mm-hmm.
They faked it really well if they faked it. And I don't want to get to the point where it sounds like I'm fetishizing it. I'm just really glad that this is happening.
It's adorable. Also, I love everyone's reactions.
You can hear the moms just losing it. Just, oh yeah! But you were talking about the characters, weren't you?
Yep. I love Sakya. They were all in character as well, I feel like, because Sakya was kind of confused. Tsukasa's just yep.
Yeah, I knew Keishiro was gay.
And then Noel's just oh, you.
I think Sayabitoki was the closest to breaking character.
Yeah.
Because he's really obviously biting his tongue to keep from laughing. So yeah, that was the best thing to come out of the show, and I didn't even really get to see it.
Yep.
By the way, if I find the editor who decided to cut to a further away camera during the actual kiss, I will break their legs. How dare you, you homophobic piece of shit.
Your days are numbered. So, I guess that's pretty much it, huh?
Yeah.
So
There's not much. I'm at the point where I just want to keep shouting about how much I love this show and the same specific things I've been shouting about since we started this podcast.
yeah, we're just gonna have to do that, but like off mic from now on.
Yeah. We're just gonna end this podcast,
Yeah.
hit the stop recording button, and feel real sad.
Yeah, so like
Because we're not doing the Q Ranger movie crossover.
no. Yeah, like on one hand, I really like this podcast because it's really fun being able to analyze shows and talk about them. It will be kind of nice to not have to like take a hour or two chunk out of a day in the week to make up the summary.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to not have to edit anymore.
That's a problem you're relieved from. Most of my life involves projects that require editing. That's
Well,
just
I
most
meant-
of my hobbies.
I meant my editing.
I know.
No.
You're free.
Mhm.
But yeah, also like part of the conceit of this show is that we didn't really know tokusatsu shows all that well, to the point where we didn't even know the phrase tokusatsu shows at the time.
Yeah, I think I may have said Sentai when I meant Toku.
Yeah.
Because I'm a fool.
Yeah, so like at the
Yeah,
time you'd seen most of the show, I hadn't seen any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are a year later, we're deep in it. We can't escape.
I watched 2 whole Toku shows, and I'm watching 5 more at
We're-
the same time.
We are right there on the ground floor of Kamen Rider 01. We're watching OG Kamen Rider. Loka's already watched X8, and Jenner and I are following along now.
Somehow we got way into Kamen Rider. I feel like we learned the wrong lessons from this podcast.
It's a gateway drug, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I guess. Well, I did always want this podcast to end. I didn't want to do like Imagine Me and Utna, where they just keep finding more tangentially related stuff to talk about.
Yep.
Or even like the other inspiration I cited, Podcast of the Galactic Heroes, where they eventually moved on to G Gundam.
Yep.
I don't really want to do another podcast, not because I, dislike doing this. It just felt like by the end it was more trouble than I expected.
Yeah. We like doing the podcast itself, and we like talking about the show. I like my thoughts being out there. The process of actually getting that into a show is a lot.
Yeah, we might off mic just set aside an hour every week to talk about the newest Kamen Rider, but I don't think we'll record it. So yeah, I guess it's time to close the curtain on this.
Yep.
Forevermore.
Adieu.